Like and subscribe right now, or you're gonna have terrible luck for the next week. Human history is dotted with enough mythical creatures. Lots of cultures had at least one beast with extraordinary power and appearance. But we all know none of these creatures existed, since no one has ever seen them. But when you think about it, stories about mighty beasts could have some grain of truth in them. So some mythical creatures might have existed, but not in the huge and powerful form they're often portrayed. Here's a look at 10 of them. Number 10. The Bunyip. The first item on our list is the Bunyip, that can be traced back to the Aborigines, the Australian native peoples. This supposedly large creature is said to dwell in water bodies such as swamps, riverbeds, and creeks, just to mention a few. While its habitats are readily agreed upon, both its name and specific appearance vary greatly depending on who you ask. But in general, the name Bunyip is used, which translates to evil spirit or devil. The appearance, on the other hand, mainly leads on the side of seals or swimming dogs. Other descriptions are usually of creatures with small heads atop long necks, while the remaining ones are largely incomprehensible. For vocalization, the Aborigines describe the Bunyip as having a hollow boom or a roar. In most myths, the creature feeds on crayfish, but in some, it's portrayed as hunting for humans with a preference for women and children. Over the years, there have been several explanations of the origin of the Bunyip, all of which are pretty convincing. One, for instance, claims the Bunyip is just a seal likening the various descriptions of the beast to the carnivorous animal. Another popular explanation terms the mythical beast as a now extinct marsupial whose appearance has been distorted in the minds of people with time. Number 9. Kraken. At least everyone has heard of the mighty Kraken, a gigantic octopus originating from the Norwegian coast where it's responsible for the disappearance of countless ships. According to the original myth, this monstrous octopus stays below the surface most of the time, but will emerge to either attack ships or feed on small fish. To strike down ships, its go-to technique was causing massive whirlpools, after which it'll reach out with its massive arms to drag the vessels below the surface. As with all mythical creatures, no one has ever seen the Kraken, but scientists have theorized the possibility of a Kraken-like aquatic animal, like the giant squid, for instance. While it's not as big as the Kraken, giant squids tend to be quite large, reaching lengths of up to 10 meters and weighing in at 700 kilograms. In addition to the size, they also have suction cups that could very well create some minor whirlpools, just like the infamous Kraken. But as you can imagine, the squid isn't large enough to grab a ship. Its abilities could have been blown out of proportion by the sailors who encountered it. Number 8. Direwolves. You might remember these big guys from the TV show of Game of Thrones. They're depicted in the show as way bigger than any of the modern-day wolves. You might think they're just an enlarged CGI version of your average wolf, or maybe they never even existed. After all, we have dragons on the same show. But you'll be wrong. Unlike dragons, direwolves were real and a separate species from today's wolves. In fact, they're the only legendary creatures in this video that we can confidently say existed. Of course, ignoring the little size exaggeration in Game of Thrones. The wolf went extinct over 9,000 years ago and is thought to have lived in South and North America. Direwolves had pretty imposing sizes compared to today's largest wolves, averaging about 90 kilograms, although some are thought to be way smaller than this. Other superior qualities include larger canine teeth and the strongest bite force among the Canis genus. Both of these are thought to have been adaptations for hunting the late Pleistocene herbivores that were pretty big compared to their modern-day peers. This reliance on big is fronted as one of the likely reasons for the extinction of the direwolf. Number 7. Chupacabra. The story of this monster drew attention in the 1990s after the animal was apparently spotted in Puerto Rico. This came in the wake of mysterious mass animal killings in an almost identical fashion. Each of the animals reportedly had 3 puncture wounds around the chest and had been completely drained of blood. This led many locals to believe their animals were killed by a single predator, the chupacabra. The myth gained momentum when similar incidences were reported in the Dominican Republic, Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and the United States. Those who claim to have seen this monster described it as of a stocky build, the size of a small bear, and a hairless body with a series of spines extending from the neck to its tail. But a deeper investigation into the matter later disputed the existence of this 21st century monster, as most of the reports about the death of animals were false. The alleged sightings, too, were found to be of those of coyotes infected by mange. Number 6. the Montauk Monster. This is another New Age monster myth that came out in mid-2008 after a strange carcass washed ashore in Montauk, New York. The discovery led to lots of speculation that the animal might have been a failed experiment at the Plum Island Disease Center of New York. Other wild guesses about the identity of the strange animal included a dog, a turtle without a shell, or a large rodent. Most of these speculations were debunked, with the eventual identity being determined as a raccoon, effectively putting an end to the myth of the Montauk Monster. But at least we know it actually existed. Number 5. The Griffin. The griffin was a combination of the two most powerful animals, the lion and the eagle. The lion made up the hind part of the beast, that's the legs and tail, while the eagle constituted the other half, head, front legs, and wings. This combo made griffins some of the most revered creatures, usually being associated with watching over treasures such as gold. Among the Greeks, for instance, the griffin nested in burrows with gold nuggets. Later on, the creatures became an important part of Christian symbolism, where they stood for both divinity and the guardians of the divine. Researchers have speculated that the image of griffins was based on the remains of a beaked dinosaur called Protoceratops that were very common in the Gobi Desert. Number 4. Basilisk. Just like the griffin, the basilisk was a combination of two different animals, that is, a rooster and a snake. According to the myth, this intriguing serpent was hatched out of a snake's egg that was incubated by a cockerel, which kind of explains its dualistic composition. The cockerel features were mainly defined about the head area, while the serpentine parts extended to the rest of the body. This beast had several lethal ways to deal damage, including a death stare, poisonous breath, highly potent venom, and, in some variations of the myth, the ability to breathe fire. It could also raise its head upright just before attacking. Killing the snake was almost impossible unless a weasel was used. The weasel was the only animal immune to the basilisk's gaze, and its urine was the required weapon against the half-chicken, half-snake creature. Number 3. Roc. The legend of the Roc has its origins in the Middle East, where it's featured in several tales of the supernatural. The legend, later on, took hold in the Western world in the 13th century. So what exactly was the Roc? It was a bird of prey, but not a typical carnivorous avian. It was way bigger and is described in some Arabian accounts as a mountain hovering over the China Seas. In drawings, it's depicted as an eagle carrying an elephant, which further reinforces its larger-than-usual size. Of course, that's only possible in tales, but the basis of it all is rooted in reality. Scientists have long hypothesized that the legend could have been inspired by real-life large bird species, especially the eagle, which could very well make away with a newborn lamb. Further on, the discovery of the remains of the now extinct Malagasy crowned eagle reinforced the legend that the Roc was born out of a real-life large bird of prey. Another possible origin of this mythical bird was the African ostrich, which, by its appearance and flightless nature, was thought to be a young version of a very large bird. That kinda makes sense when you think about it.
Now it's time for today's best pick.
Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber, so if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it over to us. We might even feature it in a future video. Number 2. Dragon. Dragons are certainly the most known mythological creatures around, and they're depicted pretty much everywhere across the world, including Africa, Asia, and Europe. Of course, the dragons were referred to with different names and a host of other properties, but bore some resemblance to each other. They were all serpentine. Additionally, most of them had that popular movie depiction of being able to unleash an inferno using their breath. Today, these fire-breathing beasts are commonplace in works of fiction such as movies, TV shows, and games. Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and Dungeons & Dragons are some of the most notable creations where dragons appear. But we know they aren't real, so what's their origin? Owing to their existence across different cultures, it's really hard to tell how their tales came to be. That being said, these fire breathers might have been born out of fossils of either dinosaurs or extinct megafauna that walked the Earth millions of years ago. As mentioned earlier in the griffin's case, ancient civilizations weren't concerned a bit about dinosaurs and attributed the huge bones to some supernatural being, like the dragon.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it really works.
Number 1. The Thunderbird. While the Middle East had the Roc as their legendary bird, the North Americans had the Thunderbird as their supernatural flying legend. but the thunderbird had way more significance than just snacking on elephants. The importance of this bird varies depending on the myths of individual North American peoples. For instance, among the Algonquin, the thunderbird is in charge of the upper world and causes lightning by flapping its wings. In drawings, the bird is depicted as an X-shaped creature. On the other hand, the thunderbirds were used to mete out punishment to immortal humans and fight underwater spirits among the Ojibwe. According to some scientists, the myth of the thunderbird was based on the discovery of the pterosaur fossils by the natives. These extinct flying reptiles were around during the Mesozoic period and went extinct about 66 million years ago. They're the earliest vertebrates with the ability to fly. Although referred to as flying dinosaurs, they aren't really dinosaurs, but are only close relatives. Interestingly, despite being reptiles, their genetic makeup isn't identical to any living reptile. For food, they had quite a flexible diet, feeding on fish, fruits, insects, and a variety of land animals. In some instances, they also turned to feeding on each other.